So, what are we working on today? We're going to try and make one fender from two fenders. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, Project Patina is about ready to be trailed off to the great Mopar junkyard in the sky. We've gotten almost every possible part off of it that can be reused for some purposes whatsoever. But being 66 is a one-year-only car, you really have to maximize the parts that are available that you have. These fenders, they both have issues. But if we're lucky, we can take parts from, or sections from one fender and put it on the other fender and save one of them. So that's what we're going to try to do this time around. So let me walk you through what we've got going on and what the plan is. All right, here's what we're going to plan on doing. This is the driver's side fender, and it has the usual issues down here in the dog leg. And you can tell it's pretty rough on the inside and the sport brace. So that's going to be addressed. And the only other spot really is up here on the top of the fender, where we've got some issues on the inside lip and here as well. So we're going to try and take sections from this fender and make it work. So this is the dog leg section, and there's not much here to use other than the sheet metal is kind of okay. It can be massaged. I just wanted it for the extra piece of the lower end of the support. This is the front end part. And what I wanted it for was this lip and this curvature here, so I can use it as a patch on the dog leg and this one. And on the top, as you can see, this one here is also got the same rust, same section, but I cut a whole section out of the top because the thought is that it could be used to kind of in place of. So we'll have to cut a piece out of this and see if we can't make it work down here. So let me get a couple of these things inside where it's less windy and you can probably hear me better, and we'll start mapping it out. Now, what made me decide to do the driver's side fender over the passenger side fender? I mean, this sheet metal is shot. I mean, you could take a piece of straight sheet metal, put it down here, do that, make a lip, put the tab there. But many years ago, I actually saved the lower dog leg off of a good fender. So it's got everything we need on it. It was rotted here, and I started to do a patch, but I'm not really happy with that. It's not quite right. So I'm going to cut that out, and we're going to redo that. Same thing with this little bottom section. That's just going to get a nice square piece of sheet metal put back on so it can be reattached to the lower part of that support frame. So that's why I chose that fender. Now, why did I take some of the pieces off the other fender? They're clearly opposite. Well, I'm going to take this part off of the new lower patch for this fender, but what I'm going to do is, this is off of the front of the other fender. And this section here has got a nice lip, and I will cut it this way as necessary. I got to do a little dinging on it. Cut this lip here back because this is going to fold over the support brace, and I think I can make this work for a patch here. So that's why I saved that part. This one here, just because. Just have another piece of this, even though this is really bad. Now, I did save the lower section off of the fender I had years ago, and it's pretty well, it's more intact than what we got here and on that one too. I mean, this one here is not too horrible, but it is pretty bad enough. So we're going to try and save as much inner bracing as we can, and if we have to make it up by hand a little bit at a time, we will, which is going to be the fun part of trying to get this all solid enough to put, you know, the patch over top of it. So that's that. I think though what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the top and get this piece here cleaned up, get the undercoating off of it, and get it cut over here so we start laying out how much of this we're going to use. So let's get going on the top. Well, you can see I had to take a little bit more than I anticipated, which is fine because you have this inner structure for the fender that the sheet metal fits on top of and gets, you know, it was spot welded in there. So we trimmed off the spot welds, pulled that piece out, pulled the top piece off. So we can clean this up now, put some, you know, chemically treat this. We'll probably just grind this edge off. You know, just get rid of it. You're not going to see it from underneath anyway, so we'll just clean it up, get some of this rust off of there so it's not going to continue being a problem. And then we'll cut this patch out, and we'll have to extend, you know, down a little further to cover up that additional issue that was here. Now, this piece was cut from the forward section of the other fender. So when we trim it up, you know, we're going to have to go crown this way and then grab the piece that goes this way. So I'm going to take the forwardmost section, cut it to length, just get it to see how it fits there, cut it here, and see if we have to kind of massage it this way a little bit to try and get that, you know, the desired profile. And then once we get that set to how we like it, we'll cut another piece afterwards, put it in there, and we'll tack this all in. Maybe we'll tack this in first, then we can get the other piece. We'll see how it goes. But first, let me cut this to length and cut it to fit, and we'll test fit it in. I got the piece cut and trimmed, and my gaps are a little bit wide, but, you know, I'll be able to MIG weld that back up. Now, the piece I cut, this concave is pretty close to the edge of the fender. It's not bad, but right from this section here to here is where this top of the fender transitions to being about flat here to concave this way. You can see it a little bit as this piece sticks up some. So I'm going to get out the hammer and dolly, kind of trying to flatten this out, round it over a little bit to get that to transition. And we'll see what it looks like in a minute. Now, I'm going to do my best to try and work this how it needs to be. This is where it needs to concave over. This needs to stay where it is, and we need to get flatter in here. So the 90 degree kind of comes up, and then it's more than 90 degrees. So I need to straighten that out and then get it to go. So I'm going to try a couple of different tools here and see what kind of happens. I've got it all kind of hammered out a little bit, and I think I'm pretty close. I got to bring it up just a little bit here, but I think the profile looks good, and it's pretty flat coming across there. You got to push up on that one corner just a little bit, but I think that this is going to get us exactly what we need to get this fender back in shape. So I'm going to tack it slowly, a couple spots, and then check, move it, adjust, and then give it a few more zaps in place. And this will be pretty much well on its way to being repaired. Well, we're looking pretty good after our first weld slash grind session. Yeah, and I've always had an issue cutting patches the correct size. That could have been avoided if I took a little more time and cut the patches a little closer. And I could back this up with some copper, a little copper plate, and it'd be a lot easier than trying to bridge that gap, because the way I was doing it is putting a lot of extra heat in here, but I'm trying to take my time and not warp as much as I can. As it is, I got a little too much heat here, and you can feel it's kind of high right in that area there. Almost tell right there. But we'll do a little body work on it with the hammer and dolly. From here this way, it feels really good as far as the contour and everything. And back here feels really nice. So I think we're looking really good as far as saving the top of this fender. Just gotta finish tacking it up, clean up the underside, add a little strip in here for, for nice, and top of the fender be good. All right, well, I've got a lot more work done on this panel here, and I've got this pretty well in the ballpark now, and everything's ground out. It's going to need a little bit more finish welding, a little more zap in here and there, and I got this whole backside I gotta weld all that up yet. But as far as where the rust really was, this whole part here is really good. Now what I did was I measured back on red 12 inches from right here and 18 inches, and used my handy dandy little gauges. So I'm starting with getting in the ballpark, and that's pretty good right there. And this one, let's see, help me understand. Oh, here we go. There. That one also not too bad. So that's pretty good, right? Now it's going to need a skim coat of filler to finish that part up there to get it, everything smooth and perfect, and maybe a little more hammer and dolly work. But for the most part, the top of that fender's done. Now, the bottom side, it's going to be a little more difficult, and I think I'm going to cover that in a different video. It's going to be hard to recreate that inner structure. Now, I showed you the other pieces for the outside patch. That's going to be pretty easy. I'll show you that next time. But yeah, I got to think a little bit about how I'm going to recreate that lower inner structure support. I got some thoughts. I'll share them next time. So I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button and consider subscribing. I'll catch you next time.